me invite you to stand for the playing of the national anthem of Jamaica and the anthem of the European Union. You may be seated. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security, the Honorable Dr. Horace Chang, State Minister in the Ministry of National Security, Mr. Xavier Main, the Honorable Xavier Main, Head of Delegation of the European Union to Jamaica, Ambassador Marianne Van Steen, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of National Security, Mr. Courtney Williams, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Ambassador Sheely Seeley Monteith, Resident Ambassadors of the EU member states, Brigadier Roderick Williams, National Coordinator of Plan Secure Jamaica, Dr. Deanna Ashley, Executive Director of the National Commission on Violence Prevention, Major Richard Cook, pastor of the Covenant City Church. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, guests, members of the media, good morning. Good morning. So I'm Wayne Henry, Chairman, Director General of the Planning Institute of Jamaica, and I'll be your chairperson for the morning's proceedings. And a warm welcome to all of you here gathered on the lawns of Jamaica House, and those joining us virtually to the launch of the program to support citizen security in Jamaica. This event, though long overdue due to the COVID-19 pandemic, is a culmination of the collective efforts of the Government of Jamaica and the European Union, commencing in 2019. As we begin this morning's proceedings, I invite at this time Major Richard Cook, pastor of Covenant City Church, to lead us in prayer.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'd like us to recognize the one true King who is Prince of Princes and Lord of Lords, King of Kings. That is our Lord Jesus Christ. Can we stand to honor him as we prepare to pray? As we prepare to pray, I just wanted to say three quick things. In his Sermon on the Mount, Jesus made some radical statements. Three of them I want to highlight this morning. He said, "Blessed are the meek, the merciful, and the peacemakers. The peacemakers are blessed because they shall be called the children of God." The second thing he said is, "Love your enemies. Bless those that curse you, and do good to them that hate you." How radical a thought is that? Then the third thing, he says, "Therefore, whatever you want men to do to you, do also to them." And he said it this way in the second of the greatest commandments. Love your neighbor as yourself. So truly what is needed here in Jamaica is this kind of radical thinking. No, we have to instill this in our people. And what is needed is a divine intervention minister to bring about this radical change. And with God, praise God, nothing is impossible. So let us pray. Heavenly Father, may Jamaicans become peacemakers, even as the government of Jamaica, its ministries, agencies, and departments, with its development partners, particularly the EU, and civil society work together to execute the Citizen Security Plan. May the church, the largest of the NGOs in Jamaica, along with all the other things that it is already doing, learn to deliver measurable, projectized social interventions that will help transform our societies into peaceful, God-fearing places in which to live, do business, and raise families. Lord, bless this ceremony, the formal launch of the Citizen Security Plan, and all those participating this morning. Particularly bless the EU as they continue to support the development of Jamaica. May the light of your gospel shine forth once more across Europe, and may the hostilities now threatening to erupt in Ukraine come to nothing. Protect and enable our security forces to deal with hardened criminals. And Heavenly Father, to our leaders, great defender, grant true wisdom from above. Lord, bless Jamaica, land we love, and grant us the strength, courage, and tenacity to love and care for each other, and so bring peace to our communities. And Lord, we pray all this in the most holy, precious, and powerful, all-powerful name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you.
You may be seated. Thank you, Major Cook. The strong Government of Jamaica EU partnership, which began over 46 years ago, has provided support to Jamaica in areas of agriculture, health, the environment and climate change, and security and justice reform. We've enjoyed an enduring partnership with the EU, and I'd like to thank the EU delegation for their unwavering support over these many years. As Jamaica's largest provider of grant resources, the EU continues its support in the area of citizen security. The program to support citizen security in Jamaica was signed by the government and the EU for an amount of €20 million on November 27, 2020. The program supports the implementation of the government's Citizen Security Plan 2020-2023, which was formally adopted by the Cabinet in May 2020 under the overall framework of the National Security Policy of 2014, and in particular, the Plan Secure Jamaica. The objective of the program to support citizen security in Jamaica is to contribute to the improvement of the security environment and the promotion of social inclusion in Jamaican communities within the context of the Citizen Security Plan and its implementation strategy. The program is a budget support program whereby funds are disbursed based on the attainment of targets agreed mutually by the government and the EU. Ladies and gentlemen, in recent times, the specter of crime and violence continues to be a concern for all well-thinking Jamaicans. The fight against crime is not without its difficulties, nor are its challenges impossible to overcome. We must be determined to prevent the escalation of crime and violence in our country by applying appropriate strategies to the problem. This must be done in order to safeguard the lives of all Jamaicans, residents, and visitors. It must be our first priority. High rates of violence are associated with various forms of social and economic disadvantages. Research has shown that violence perpetuates poverty. When children are exposed to violence, it impacts their ability to sleep, their behavior, and they are unable to do well in school. Ultimately, their ability to earn later in life is affected, and hence their ability to escape poverty. Strategies must be coordinated, focused, and targeted for our fight against crime to be effective. Our focus must be on the vulnerable and volatile communities. Through partnership with the European Union, the program to support citizen security in Jamaica seeks to achieve agreed targets to address some of these social issues. Among the areas to be addressed under the program are training of at-risk youth, parenting seminars, and the creation of safer spaces within communities, with the aim of enhancing the quality of lives of citizens and the well-being and agency of communities. A unique feature of the program is that it facilitates close collaboration among ministries, departments, and agencies involved in the CSP, which will result in more sustainable outcomes and better targeting of the government's budgetary resources towards crime reduction and citizen security. In short, a whole-of-government approach to addressing the problem of crime and violence. So, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to again thank you for your attendance here this morning, which signals the government's commitment to addressing the problem of crime and its contributing factors. We also again recognize with gratitude the invaluable support being provided by the EU in this regard. I'll now invite Brigadier Roderick Williams, National Coordinator of Plan Secure Jamaica, to bring greetings at this time.
Honorable Dr. Horace Chang, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security. Honorable Xavier Main, Minister of State in the Ministry of National Security. Your Excellency, Marianne Van Steen, Head of the European Union Delegation in Jamaica. Other heads of diplomatic missions, Mr. Courtney Williams, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of National Security, Ambassador Sheila Seeley-Monteith, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Head of the Foreign Service. Other Permanent Secretaries, Major General Anthony Anderson, Commissioner of Police, Dr. Wayne Henry, of course, Director General of the Planning Institute of Jamaica, Ms. Diane McIntosh, the Executive Director of the Citizen Security Secretariat, Ms. Diana Ashley, the Executive Director of the Violence Prevention Commission, other heads of departments and agencies, other specially invited guests, colleagues, ladies, gentlemen, good morning. I'm very pleased to be participating in this event to officially launch the ongoing Government of Jamaica European Union partnership to enhance citizen security in Jamaica, as it provides a unique opportunity to publicly recognize its value. Jamaica's strategic roadmap for national development articulates a vision where Jamaica is increasingly the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. That national development plan also recognizes that creating a society that is more secure, cohesive, and just is a necessary precondition for the attainment and sustainment of that vision. However, citizen security in Jamaica, I think we'd all recognize and agree, could benefit from greater improvement, as is now partially evidenced by the fact that Jamaica's homicide rate remains at an unacceptable level, fueled by, among other things, higher levels of gang violence, domestic violence, and the illicit possession and use of firearms. All of society is significantly negatively affected by this, but those most impacted are usually the vulnerable groups, such as children, youth, and women, particularly those on the lower rungs of, well, the lower socioeconomic rung of society. And it is reflective of deep-rooted socioeconomic and cultural risk factors in these vulnerable communities. If that isn't enough, the situation is further compounded by high fear of victimization and higher levels of public apathy, as abnormally higher levels of criminality is normalized, driven by apparent increase in criminal impunity. This, of course, has led the government of Jamaica over the years to prioritize the rapid and sustained improvement of citizen security in full recognition of the fact that citizen security is a cross-cutting issue impacting the whole of society that no stakeholder group or entity has the capability to deliver on its own. Success, therefore, requires a more comprehensive, coordinated, integrated, flexible, inclusive, and enduring approach that extends beyond the traditional national security and law enforcement approaches to include measures that seek to address root causes. To that end, a city security plan for Jamaica was developed in 2019 to support and build on the work already being undertaken to improve citizen security by a number of ministries, departments, and agencies and other stakeholder groups, with a view of achieving greater coherence, efficiency, and efficacy. The plan, as designed, is strategically aligned with the National Development Plan through the National Security Policy and Plan Secure Jamaica, and is effected utilizing an evidence-based and targeted multi-sectoral approach around three prioritized outcomes. The first being crime and violence reduction, to include, of course, initiatives to build institutional and technical capacity to enhance the effectiveness and efficiency of the state in reducing crime and violence. Second, as mentioned before, the creation of safer spaces, and this is aimed at reducing opportunities for crime and violence arising from situational factors and providing effective environmental safeguards from victimization. And third, human and community development. For each priority outcome, there are a series of targeted interventions, objectives, and activities. The implementation is coordinated by a dedicated secretariat that is supported by a whole-of-government business group, informed by the work of the National Commission on Violence Prevention, and guided and assessed via robust governance, monitoring, and evaluation frameworks and mechanisms, to include an independent monitoring and oversight committee that reports regularly to the public. A key feature of the plan is the multi-sectoral clear, hold, build approach being utilized as an important supporting framework for the programming of activities to deliver an appropriate and sustainable mix of responsive, protective, and preventative interventions in our most vulnerable communities towards their social and physical transformation. This more rigorous and comprehensive approach in delivering citizen security within our most vulnerable communities is more popularly recognized as the zones of special operations. And as you already know, it enjoys the full commitment of all the key stakeholders, to include our international development partners like the European Union. It is also well known that the European Union has long been a key development partner to Jamaica. But what might be a little less known, and this is why I'm particularly pleased to have this opportunity this morning, is that the EU, primarily through its delegation here in Jamaica, has been an energetic, dedicated, and innovative partner working shoulder to shoulder with us in resourcing the development and the implementation of the Citizen Security Plan through continuing budget support and technical assistance. So from conceptualization through to implementation, they have been by our side all the way fully committed to the process. And in doing so, they, along with the government of Jamaica, have modeled the level of commitment we believe is required of all stakeholders towards this initiative to drive significant improvements in citizen security in Jamaica through wide stakeholder participation in a whole of society approach. It goes without saying, therefore, that adequate and sustained resourcing of this very important undertaking is essential for its success. And so we remain grateful to partners like the European Union for their continued support. In closing, I just want to emphasize that despite the obvious clear and present dangers and threats and challenges, creating a safer Jamaica is achievable. It is within our gift to do. And it is in the interest of all elements of society, whether public or private, communities or individuals, to play their part and make their contribution towards that end. Citizen security remains a key pillar of national development. Our shared challenges simply require shared responsibilities in order to realize shared benefits. So again, we should all contribute to the endeavor, and this ongoing Government of Jamaica EU partnership is an excellent example of what can happen when stakeholders are fully committed to an outcome. Citizen security remains, I think you'd all agree, everyone's business. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brigadier Williams. Ladies and gentlemen, please accept my apologies. I failed to recognize Major General Anthony Anderson, our Commissioner of Police, and leading the charge on many levels. And my apologies. So welcome, Commissioner. He and I go way back. We are from that noble institution where we pledge to give our utmost for the highest. Oh, I love it. Yeah. and Major Cook also. So, a man was going through, ran a red light, and the police stopped him. And the officer said to him, you never see the red light, sir? And the man said, officer, to be honest, I saw the red light. Is you I never see. But let me invite at this time Dr. Diana Ashley, Executive Director of the National Commission on Violence Prevention, to bring greetings.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Master of Ceremonies, Honorable Dr. Wayne Henry, Honorable Dr. Horace Chang, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security, Minister of State in the Ministry of National Security, Xavier Main, Her Excellency Mariana Van Steen, head of the European delegation in Jamaica, and as we have heard, many other distinguished guests who are here today, ladies and gentlemen. First, Dr. Henry, let me just give you a little clarification. I'm actually here today as a member of the Commission on the National Commission on Violence Prevention. I happen to be, as well, the Executive Director of the Violence Prevention Alliance. But today I'm here as a commissioner. And I bring greetings and best wishes for the successful implementation of the Citizen Security Program, which is being implemented in partnership with the EU. I speak here on behalf of Professor Maureen Sams-Vaughan, who is chairman of the National Commission on Violence Prevention, and who sends her greetings and apologies as she's unable to be here today because of competing work commitments. Violence in Jamaica, like COVID, is an epidemic. It not only causes death and disabilities, impacts the capacity of the healthcare services to provide care, and when combined with the demands generated by COVID, our current epidemic, the consequences are devastating. It generates fear and affects the mental health of persons, especially those living in violence-prone communities. Most importantly, it affects the lives of our children as exposure to, witnessing, and experiencing violence within the home and the community has detrimental effects on their development and behaviors. Overall, violence is affecting the progress and development of Jamaica. The recognition of the impact of violence and development led to the inclusion of the goals to prevent violence under the Sustainable Development Goals, and Jamaica is a signature to that agreement, as well as over 190 other countries across the world. There has been recognition that violence prevention is a critical component and part of violence reduction. In 2019, the government of Jamaica, in recognition of the importance of violence prevention and the reduction of crime and violence, established the National Commission on Violence Prevention, to study the problem of violence in Jamaica and the existing strategies being used to reduce violence, and to make realistic, attainable recommendations to specifically target attitudinal and behavioral changes in the society. The Commission has adopted the public health approach to violence prevention, and it uses the definitions and topography of violence as provided by the World Health Organization, and studying these in particular with respect to the area of interpersonal violence. The Commission has developed a comprehensive strategic plan which has 9 areas of focus. We're looking at adequate legislative and policy support for violence prevention, looking at violence prevention programs that are evidence-based, adequate social protection and development systems, particularly for vulnerable in the society, who are vulnerable to violence in our society, public education and violence prevention that made available to all, comprehensive and current data available to facilitate evidence-based decision-making, the cooperation, coordination, and collaboration among violence prevention stakeholders for collective response and impact, a very important component of all of our work. Cost and cost-benefit of violence prevention interventions, the cultural norms and values that will promote a peaceful society. And from these Basically, these analyses and studies, and with their recommendations, will develop a comprehensive 10-year action plan for violence prevention. The Commission answers to the Prime Minister, and we look forward to be able to be putting this together over the next couple of years. The Commission looks forward to collaborating with the Citizen Security Program and the many government agencies and departments and other partners, which include those in civil society and church, that are involved in violence prevention work, to enable data and information sharing, involved in the monitoring and review of activities, as well as conducting integrated analyses to determine the effectiveness of interventions being undertaken, and to identify violence prevention best practices that should be adopted and scaled up widely. We thank you, and we look forward to a very successful implementation of this good program.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ashley. I want to invite at this time Ms. Diane McIntosh, the Executive Director of the Citizen Security Secretariat, to give us a presentation on the Citizen Security Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Deputy Prime Minister and Honorable Minister of National Security, Dr. Horace Chang, Honorable Xavier Main, Minister of State in the Ministry of National Security, Her Excellency Marianne Van Steen, Ambassador of the Delegation of the European Union to Jamaica, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of National Security, Mr. Courtney Williams, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Ambassador Sheila Monteith, Commissioner of Police Major General Anthony Anderson, other members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished partners and stakeholders in citizen security, ladies and gentlemen, a bright and beautiful good morning to you.
Good morning.
I am delighted to represent the Citizen Security Secretariat and our partners and stakeholders from across the government and the social sector who are a part of this critical multi-sectoral and community-focused approach to improve citizen security in Jamaica. The Citizen Security Plan, or CSP, is structured, as you have heard, around 3 outcome priority areas: crime and violence reduction, safer spaces, and community development. And since October 2020, the Citizen Security Secretariat has been the delivery and monitoring hub of the CSP. We are a small team of 8 in the Secretariat, and on any given day, we are engaged in data collection, reviews, consultations, and the monitoring and tracking of some 143 key performance indicators among key ministries, departments, and agencies across the government, carrying out social programs and interventions in many communities across the island. In our experience, we are seeing the closing of gaps and less duplication of effort, and we are collecting far better data to improve better decision-making in citizen security. In this whole of society approach, we are making headway in reversing weak coordination of institutional effort and sharing lessons, best practices among ourselves. Where there has been a lack of data to drive interventions, we are now in the process of a transformative data culture that is giving us a better understanding of the needs of the community. And where there has been little or no monitoring and evaluation, we have an overall governance score, and it's just a collective score, of 80% after 15 months of operation for project management and oversight. And this includes the business groups and all the oversight and monitoring accountability frameworks that have been established on this program. We are also encouraged by the progress of our integrated 25-school strategy, where clear steps are being taken to improve the literacy, numeracy, and behavioral challenges of over 16,000 children across the ZOZOs. Let me share some testimonials from some of our education officials and school principals and the police. Mr. Donovan Hunter, Denham Town High School principal. The CSP 25 school strategy is an inventive strategy that is welcomed, especially in schools like Denham Town High. Through the school strategy, more persons are working together, sharing ideas. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information is having closer dialogue with a view to improve the approach to pedagogy. Literacy and numeracy teams are creating action plans to meet the differentiated needs. Ms. Suzette Morris, Ministry of Local Government and Labor and Social Security, The CSS has provided an integrated forum and framework for improved collaboration among social protection partners in Jamaica. The integrated service delivery framework and structured monitoring and evaluation mechanism has made it easier for us as implementing agencies to deliver services and assess our performance over time. Senior Superintendent of Police Desmond Brooks. The CSP represents one bold step that incorporates valuable inputs from different sectors in managing a common problem that has stymied our growth and development as a nation. And Mr. Richard Troop from Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. The Secretariat has been an unrelenting advocate and practitioner for the use of data to inform evidence-based interventions and the engagement of all stakeholders to take ownership of their development agenda and process. The CSS represents the clearest signal that a small but highly skilled and effective team within government is a necessary organ to ensure the whole of government working together for the best interest of citizens is not only possible, but achievable. The Citizen Security Plan and the Citizen Security Secretariat are grateful for the sponsorship of the Government of Jamaica through the Ministry of National Security and the European Union, whose engaged interest and hands-on support of the Citizen Security Plan has been nothing short of remarkable. Ambassador Van Steen, we are learning so much from our EU experts, and I can confidently say that just after a year in operation, Minister, we have proof of concept that we are on the right path and that we are getting things right. Today we can say that in this initiative to improve the security of the citizens and residents of Jamaica, we have a more sustainable, synergistic, and results-oriented approach to our interventions. We are tracking our outcome indicators better. Our data-driven approach informs our monitoring process and puts us in a stronger position to mobilize additional resources and to bring all the stakeholders who need to be at the table. In this regard, I call on all the potential partners out there to come on board, join us, and let's build together in this vitally important citizen security initiative. I thank you all for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. McIntosh. I also recognize Mr. Omar Sweeney, Executive Director of the JCIF and Deputy for the ZOSO, Deputy Chair. They had a literary festival, annual festival with all the practitioners in literature. And they decided on a light moment to have a prize, spot prize, with some £1,000 for anyone who would come up with a poem in a very short order that ended with Timbuktu. And of course, present in the audience was a great Professor J.J. Wordsmith, and he stepped up immediately. And he said, "A caravan in the desert going all the way through. Merchants were traveling 2 by 2, carrying gold and silver, spices too, and their destination was Timbuktu." And the crowd went wild. Oh, excellent. And I said, well, certainly that must win, eh? Until a Jamaican in the audience said, well, if you're giving away money, and £1,000 at that, he said, here it is. Me and my friend Tim I chill out for a few. Some bad man draw we down close to the zoo. They were 3 and we were 2. Me buck 1 and Tim. It's a new year, I'm going to do better at the jokes. But ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to welcome and join me in welcoming Her Excellency Marianne Van Steen, Ambassador of the Delegation of the European Union to Jamaica, to bring remarks at this time.
Honorable Dr. Horace Chang, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security, distinguished authorities of the Jamaican government and Jamaican civil society, I'm not going to name you all because I do not want to repeat the error of forgetting some very important people present here, like the Police Commissioner, Omar Sweeney. So, distinguished participants to this event, I also would like to greet the representatives and the heads of missions, ambassadors of the European Union member states present here, because we should not forget that our support is provided through the EU member states. So very happy to welcome them as well here, members of the press, and of course, everyone who I have not named. Please let me greet you and wish you all a very happy, healthy, and I very much hope so as well, a very safe 2022. I approach today's launch with great hope, because I'm very aware that all the Jamaicans are rather desperate for solutions to the highly regrettable wave of crime, and especially murders, that is playing in the country. Every day, we hear the cries for sustainable crime prevention strategies that will allow citizens to live in peace without fear of violence, and that will allow the country to actually move on, to effectively pursue its development and growth ambitions. Today's launch of this important program from the European Union to support the efforts of the Jamaican government comes at a very crucial moment. It also highlights how security has become a very important component of our strong and long-standing partnership. I would like to thank in particular Prime Minister Andrew Holness and Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of National Security, Dr. Chang, for allowing the European Union to partner with the government and with the people of Jamaica on this very, very high priority for the country. The government's citizen security program, which we support, is seeking to reform the approach to crime and violence. We are not yet seeing, and we're not even yet expecting, immediate results. And the current spike of violence is more than only regrettable. But we do support the government's aim to look for structural changes, through coordinated all government interventions, through actions that are based on evidence-based data and with a focus on prevention. This approach takes more time, but we firmly do believe that it should lead to better results in the long term. As has been said, the European is providing support to Jamaica for a total amount of 20 million euros. It's quite a lot in Jamaican dollars, 3.5 billion they told me, but I didn't do the calculations. It's a lot of money, but it's only a drop in the ocean when you see the challenge that the country is facing. You have heard the presentation before explaining what are the objectives and the targets of our program. I would like to add to that our support can be divided up in 3 different components. On the one hand, it's about funds, it's about helping the Jamaican government, it's about an injection in the budget of the Ministry of Finance and via the Ministry of Finance to the different ministries and agencies that with these funds, will deliver core social services and initiatives mainly in the most vulnerable communities of this island. Adolescents, youth, but also women that are unfortunately very often most at risk, are the primary beneficiaries of those interventions. Secondly, our support also goes to provide highly specialized technical assistance, has been mentioned as well, in the form of experts, research, and training to improve the delivery mechanisms, coordination, quality, and effectiveness of interventions for the targeted populations. And finally, and certainly not less important, the European Union has also allocated part of these funds to support civil society participation in the implementation of the Citizen Security Initiative. Inter alia, this includes a support that we would like to give to the monitoring and oversight mechanism of the 2020 crime consensus. And the idea behind this third component is that it will keep the government accountable and keep the citizens of Jamaica informed of all the efforts that are being undertaken. The reason behind the splitting of the envelope is because indeed it is not just funds that are missing. It's not just with a bunch of money that you can solve problems. What is needed is also expertise, knowledge, and above all, a strong social pact. A strong social pact that brings together citizens and all sectors of society in the fight against crime and insecurity. Fortunately, and I'm sure you all know that, the elements of this pact already exist when in 2020 the National Consensus on Crime was adopted. I have to tell you that this act, this consensus, paved actually the way in order to convince our friends back in Europe to support this program. We consider that as an extraordinary step forward, and we fully share its principles and objectives, which were formulated and agreed by the Prime Minister, the Leader of the Opposition, the private sector, the churches, civil society organizations, and other key leaders from a wide cross-section of the Jamaican society. This is something that you will not see happening in many countries. In the current context, therefore, it is important to recall and revive today the spirit of that consensus and move together to make Vision 2030 a reality. Jamaica as a secure place to live, work, raise families, and doing business, has been mentioned before as well. But the road, as we know, is long and it's bumpy, and as we speak, violence and crime, especially homicides, in particular against women and children, are at very worrying levels. And therefore, while we look forward with a lot of hope, and I was very happy to actually hear all these optimistic words from the former speakers, at the same time, I would like to use this opportunity just to remember all the victims, all the children, women, young men, and everyone else that has been a victim or that is still suffering from injuries, family loss, or psychological trauma. This program is for them, and to avoid that we will see more of those victims. I'm going to conclude. On the one hand, we are somehow sad that the country does need our support in this area, but we're very proud that we can be partners in this. And more importantly, we're very much hoping and looking forward to very tangible, concrete, and convincing results for a country as promising as Jamaica. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Van Steen. Ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased to have with us our Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security, the Honorable Dr. Horace Chang, to deliver our main address. And let's invite him and welcome him at this time.
not many people are shorter than I am. Our chairman, Dr. Wayne Henry, Director General of the Planning Institute, my colleague, Minister Xavier Main, new to the ball game in this era, but has been in the government for some time. Welcome to the Ministry of National Security. First public event for the Minister. Ambassador, Her Excellency Ambassador Marianne Van Steen, who has become almost a part of the Ministry of National Security, Crime Prevention Operation. Today she's been here. First event for the new year. Good to have you, Ambassador, and thank for your continued support and partnership in the area of civil security. Permanent Secretary, Mr. Courtney Williams, and Permanent Secretary Ambassador Sheila Monteith for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and Commissioner of Police, General Anthony Anderson, who carries the fight operation on the field. And I wish to recognize in the audience, of course, Mr. Sweeney, who heads up Jamaica Social Development Fund, has been doing elements of this kind of work for some years. And of course, my friend and the Commissioner, I think there are two of them, Ms. Dr. Diana Ashley, who spoke earlier, from the Violence Prevention Commission, and Dr. Elizabeth Ward. And Ambassador, if I make any mistake in public health, you'll have to blame my friend Dr. Ashley. She taught most of what I know in public health when I had the privilege of working in that ministry. I was a young medical officer at a time when public health, in fact, did carry a certain, and still do, but I think got a big push out of what was it, Diana? The Alma Ati Healthcare for All by 2020. Still not objective. Don't think we have quite achieved it, especially with changing times. Of course, violence is a public health issue. And unfortunately, unlike COVID virus, when it mutates, it doesn't mutate and become milder. It tends to mutate and become more severe. So other members of the permanent secretaries, members of the diplomatic corps, business leaders, and well-wishers, may I recognize Brigadier Roderick Williams, our National Coordinator for Plan Secure Jamaica, who spoke earlier. Good morning to all of you. It's my privilege to be here today as we launch this component, which is the support of the European Union for elements of civil security in Jamaica. The European Union has been maybe one of our longest serving partners in terms of partnering in the area of civil security, in all areas, in fact, since almost independence, when the European countries have been here from the very beginning. But the European Union has been particularly supportive of the crime, civil security, and it showed their partnership over the last, 40 plus years in Jamaica. And since I've been in the ministry, I said we have been meeting, and Mr. Ambassador Van Steen has been out here with us on a number of occasions as we look at various aspects of implementation in the area. Today, of course, this launch is also significant, not only in terms of the value and the commitment and consistent support of the European Union, but it's also taking place at a time when there has been some pivoting in how we execute our operations and plans and projects. I think it's the first big funding that's a bit different from straight project funding, and it's funded through the Government of Jamaica budget as budget support and directed to the various institutions involved and in the execution of the activities. It signals there for a number of things, in addition to the pivoting to ensuring that we have efficient institutions serving the public, which is a call I made very early on, even before I realized what some of the implications were in terms of the budgeting and citizenship. But the truth is that we have done much work in the area of intervention in our communities, but we have not had the outcome that we wish. And without getting into context with my NGOs, I may refer more to a government program. Our review of the education system demonstrates that Jamaica, in expense and commitment to budget commitment to education, is equal to any across the globe. We have school spaces for every child in Jamaica, but the outcome in education has not been good. And the government is taking steps to correct that. And that was maybe our single largest investment, social investment. I think the over the 10-year period that have been referred to in recent studies, we invested nearly $1 trillion in education. I think it's some $900 billion. Yet we have less than 40% of our students graduating with the basic 3 CXCs, or having an employable skill, and at the grade 4 level, maybe less than 40% who have the requisite literacy and numeracy skills. We have to face that reality. And the fact is that the failure in education, which itself leads to some of the things we are referring to, with, human, social apathy, some social distancing from a different point of view in terms of people feeling disconnected, lack of inclusivity in the society, leads to violence. And the same comment, when I made this comment first, on our social intervention, I know my good friend there took me to task. The reality is we spent huge amounts of funds, and we're not getting the outcome. And I think the fundamental shift is welcome and important, and I will comment on it as we proceed, because the foundation that we build has to be the public institution that serve the poor. There's no other way. That cannot be debatable. But at the time too, when those projects were being implemented, and there's a coincidence because I think much of them came to an end last year. Not they were some people think we stopped them. No, the government is stopping the program. A lot of our programs came to the end of a cycle, and I have to commend as we proceed. So the deviation, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the European Union, as they had this early discussion, and the European Union contribution, the first major contribution in this new direction with the security plan. And I want to thank Ambassador for that. I said to send different signals as we proceed in terms of how we operate. What it means is that the funding coming to the budget now has to go through the agency involved. And I want to go back to that because we are not going to have success in retraining our young people in a sustainable manner until the education system works. We must have HEART and other systems that catch them at a second chance and cater to the 15 to 30-year-old who are it is a recruitment era where we get our killers from and the murderers. And they are the victims as well. But the government must spend money and the public sector must spend money, and to the extent our partners assist, we have to spend funding in providing training opportunities for those people and ensuring that we can provide productive occupation for all of them. But if the basic education system fails, what we are doing is putting them on a treadmill. Because you train 5,000 this year and 7,000 join next year. We have to ensure that every challenged family in our difficult communities, and in particular the 125 that was identified statistically by the Planning Institute of Jamaica that are at risk, we must identify every single mother, every child born in poverty, and ensure they get quality public health care from day one, from they're still in the womb, that they get to the antenatal clinic, identify and treat, and that while the social safety net is not that tight, there's enough to assist and change their lives. So at that level, they will begin to get proper nutrition, and when they are born, we ensure they have nutrition, and then the mothers can be trained to do something productive, because a child who is emotionally neglected gets cold and pain at that age. If they're allowed to grow to age 15, still cold, still hungry, and they become angry, you have a killer. No, that's what we have. But the work starts there, and it therefore starts with our public institutions, including public health, Ministry of Labor and Social Security, and education. And then we add to it with our NGOs and community support. It must be an addition. It can't be no other way. That is my position, I said, which sometimes is misunderstood, but I have to repeat it because the policy of the government and how we have articulated and why we took the position in Plan Secure Jamaica, which started back in, planning was done. I think we completed that in 2018, late 2018, and extracted the security plan. The Plan Secure Jamaica is a broad-based activity, including policing, and the broad aspects of security, which led by police, but involves all of the agencies, Jamaica Defense Force, Customs, Passport Immigration Agency, etc., border control. City security plan, of course, is to focus investment on our at-risk communities and our at-risk people and citizens. And that is the fundamental shift, and it's done to ensure institutions operate. Of course, all of that, as indicated and supported by the EU ambassador, we said it had to be evidence-based. In other words, when the money is spent, we have to ensure that we can monitor it and see that we get the outcome. The move in that direction is taking place. I want to assure the members here, both of the government and our ambassador, who is here as a partner, and has to be sensitized to what we're doing. The government has structured its organization to do that kind of coordination, because traditionally we have operated as silos for a number of reasons: the structure of government, as well as a historical tight budget. The fact is, the economy for some time has been, if not growing, almost compressing. Because if you take inflationary pressures and increasing costs and you earn the same amount, you're really not, it's really almost a mathematical concept to say you're steady. You never go static in a society. You're either moving one direction or the other. And there was pressure, therefore. There natural human reaction. Institutions have small amount of money. They want to say, well, I can do that. And they hang on to it, tighten around it, and refuse to talk nicely to Dr. Henry at the Planning Institute. But beyond that, I have to go back and do what I do in my little corner and make sure I can show something for it. Well, in fact, cooperation and collaboration can make those 10 small things become a bigger issue. And that's what we're trying to do and will do. The government created the Citizen Security Business Council, which is all the permanent secretaries, head of the various institutions, with the imprimeur of the Prime Minister, is the nominal chair. I functionally chair that. And we're going to pull them all together as tightly as we can to make them function. And especially for our ambassador from the EU and my ambassador from Foreign Affairs, who took a big role in getting this fund here in Foreign Affairs. My permanent secretary will tie them together. But we have a number of support. We have good support in the institution now. I have to commend, in particular, your PIOJ Deputy Director, Ms. Barbara Scott. She's like the seamstress. She will, the needle will stick sometime, but she'll go and pull it together and sew it together when necessary. And she has been very supportive, very helpful to get the agencies to come together and realize we have one goal, and we are one government and one society. Of course, Mr. Sweeney has been at it for some time. I met Mr. Sweeney way back in, I would say, a long time. He's about a little bit older than we look. Right? When he walked through Flanker with me to design and execute one of the first inner-city basic service program, which started the process of addressing some of our challenged communities. The big shift, of course, is that at that time, we're still focused on not only projects, but doing work in particular silos. I think it's a very good example to refer to, because it indicates that if we're going to have successful, sustainable transformation, safe spaces is fundamental to that. Having effective community policing, and that's why we adopted the first of our plan, the first piece of legislation, the Zone of Special Operations, because the first objective is clear. Hold, the first activity is come under the policy is clear, then hold, build. Build is a transformative operation, starting with, of course, in the hold, but we have to disrupt the violence producers. The commission set up by the government and the Prime Minister will in fact articulate their long-term activities that will reduce this impact, but all of the things come together to ensure that at-risk citizens in at-risk communities will get quality service from government. It will be coordinated and therefore ensure that it will be beneficial. We will monitor it empirically so that we're not just doing a nice project. And I hope I don't take back in time, but it's something that I've been through it. That's my constituency. Commissioner on Statistics will tell you it's maybe one of the toughest to operate in. Still some have different dogmatic ideas how it runs. I'm not going to tell my story, but I accept it's one of the toughest communities to operate in. And Flankos had that reputation. Well, I said it has shown some extremely good quality best practices, but some failures, dramatic failures, because we failed to put in the safety at the very front end. That's what the zone of special operations is about. There is no alternative but strong, efficient policing in the first phase to remove the violence producers, control them, and get them out of the space. And simultaneously focus our efforts on the citizens who are under pressure, whose entire rights have been removed by brutal criminals who have neither thought nor care except themselves. And therefore they have to be removed from the community and allow the community to breathe and allow the citizens to benefit from, not only enjoy their rights, but benefit from the programs designed to transform the community. Very basic effort, you know. The character of this criminality in Western Jamaica a little bit different. But downtown Kingston, and I'm not today here, I'm just here to remind the country, because I think the change has come on, you know. And I measure change in more simple ways, or executive ways. Sorry, I didn't call it at the beginning. It's Dan McIntosh, who heads up the City Security Secretariat, who, with our team, get the numbers. I look at simple things. For example, when I started speaking of the Southern Crescent, it was like, what kind of language is from the minister? Now recognize for what it is. It helps to define a particular area that has an extremely high homicide rate. In fact, the statistics will tell us in those 4 police divisions, if we can reduce homicide significantly, it accounts for 40% of homicide in Jamaica, which means violence at its most extreme end. But when we speak of clear and strong policing, understand, you go into that community and you find the single mother family living under a plastic tent, plastic cover, hung beside a zinc fence. And you'll make the wonderful effort, and you commend the Member of Parliament and the NGO who might be involved, and you build them a nice shelter in which they are dry, they have sanitary facility, and you begin the process of giving that person equity in society. And of course, in today's Jamaica, somebody went and take a picture and put it on the front page of a newspaper and commend not so much the politician who's involved, but the NGO who might have contributed the material and house. But when you leave, if the police has not been there to remove the gangster, the day before, they're using that mother's child to wipe the windscreen to collect money and share it. When the house is built, they turn around and collect rent from her. So you haven't done anything. In fact, you have emboldened and empowered the criminal. And that's why, while we discuss city security today and the collaborative effort of agencies to execute our program, and I'll go through a short presentation that I had from my speechwriter, not taking much more time. Strong, effective policing is the first step in ensuring that we have quality, dynamic communities, healthy communities, and to offer people hope for a better future, and one that is safe, and Jamaica can grow and produce. We do have some growth, and we have some development. So I'm not going to go on to tell you it is impossible, because the violence in Jamaica not only confined to specific geographic spaces, but is largely proximal and is criminal-oriented. If you had violence at the level of Jamaica challenged the state authority, would have a complete different thing. And we certainly would have any kind of growth or any kind of social stability. It is violence among gangsters, murdering each other, and sometimes it leads to, the dichotomy leads to some pretty weird attitude by some of our people who should be community leaders as to how we should treat it. But it's the core problem that oppresses the citizens of our underdeveloped and challenged communities. Security, therefore, is the most fundamental objective of national security in Jamaica today. It presents the most comprehensive approach to guaranteeing the delicate balance between the security of the persons and their democratic coexistence. It is regarded as a concept that best lends itself to addressing the problems of crime and violence from a human rights perspective. According to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, under democratic regimes, the concept of security against the threat of crime and violence is associated with city security and is used to refer to the paramount security of individuals and good groups, social groups. City security represents an uncontroversial move towards an approach that focuses on building a stronger democratic citizenry, while making clear that the central objective of the policy established is the human individual, and not the security of the state or a given political system. The democratic system is still important and fundamental, and sometimes, if I deviate a little bit again, Jamaica and Jamaicans at this very level gives not much respect to the strength of a democratic system. Jamaica, as a small little country, is maybe the only country which has remained at this level of government that has had over 77 years of successful elective government. In fact, even more than some of my ambassadors, countries in the eastern half of the European Union, this country has been having successful elections and change of government on a routine basis since 1944. It's something that we ought to be proud of, but there's more interest in battering down the poor MPs than in looking at our system and realize it's still one of our successes, that we can take pride in. This morning event, of course, signals more than the strengthening of the long-standing bonds of friendship between Jamaica and the European Union. It's not a mere formality to indicate that the European Union's support for crime prevention in Jamaica. And I repeat, it is not a mere formality to indicate the EU's support for crime prevention in Jamaica. It's been a long-standing quality relation. This partnership between the government of Jamaica and the European Union to support security in Jamaica is a symbol of Jamaica's, also a symbol of Jamaica's material as a democratic society, as evidenced by a prioritization of security of the individuals and groups who make up our society. And also the shift into allowing our budget, because I commented before, but if we did not make certain significant change in how our budget is operated, while I am concerned about strengthening the institution of government, the funding from our partner would not go to the Ministry of Finance. And while he's not a member, and he's a member of the Security Council, we commend Minister Clark and his predecessors for what they did to ensure that Jamaica can organize its financing and budget in a much more transparent and effective manner. What we now have to do is execute more efficiently, and that requires the monitoring as done by security. But also, as said, Dr. Henry, I think we'll have to ensure that we get some of our non-government agencies who do this kind of work to do what I call operational research. Not just by monitoring the statistics we make changes, but examine in detail the outcomes as we proceed. And we don't wait until the 5 years finish, we make a change or we criticize. We change as we move along. We have to embed that flexibility in our agencies. If it's not working, stop and change. You don't have to be embarrassed by that. I wish to express my appreciation on behalf of the government and the people of Jamaica to the European Union for partnering with us on this most crucial aspect of public safety and security. I repeat, Madam Vanstina, really appreciate it. This is a critical area. I'm mindful and must underscore the financing agreement is facilitating Jamaica's attainment of sustainable development goals, especially goal number 1, no poverty, I say less poverty, and 10, gender equality and reducing inequalities, and Sustainable Development Goals 11 and 16, sustainable communities and effective governance. And I pause again, often time when I use the word gender in Jamaica, yes, we have serious challenges with our children and women, but this country has lost generations of young males. That's the elephant in the room. We have slaughtered over 20,000 young men in this country. Some 85% of homicide are between 15 and 30, which is young men approaching the most productive sector of their life. We don't have a challenge to the state yet, but if we continue to keep our young men in this state, we could have serious challenges to the integrity of our state and our democracy. That group has, and the historical, social reasons may be debated and researched and necessary, but the reality is we are losing thousands and we are losing generations of young Jamaican males. And whatever program we do have to earmark and focus on that area. And this particular program is not only seeking parenting and all, among its the outcomes that are being monitored is, of course, training opportunities for young males and young adults, but in particular young males. And in this year, the Jamaica Defense Force has had its role expanded and is doing a phenomenal job in both the National Service Corps and through the Military Technical Academy, which is offering programs that attract young men. We have young women coming too, but the fact is that truck driving and construction, still at this stage of development, attracts more males than females, which is what I want to see happening, that we can take off the street at all times the young, disenchanted males who we need to occupy productively. In fact, we look at our school system, we need to find productive alternative for maybe 20,000 kids, maybe more. And that's the target. But the research being done to get true demographic data will ensure we have the numbers. Not just do the project when we start and earmark 20 million and in this one or 100 million there, and this particular project is a big project. And we have had huge projects before. CSJP, I think, spent 75 million US, am I right, from PS, over a period of time. But critical to that before we move, we must have the numbers of citizens, the humanity that is in there, and know what their status is, and therefore when we work there to change those that need to be changed. If not, the money means nothing. I need to know that if we have 2,000 young men in Greenwich Farm who are likely to be recruited to gangs, at the beginning of my program, I begin to show a new direction, and at the end of it, I won't have any to recruit. Not by locking them up, not by chance, but ensuring that they have alternative opportunities because we engage them in a positive manner and take them out to the community. These are all critical components of providing citizen security and are pivotal to the government's policy priorities in national security. That's why we use the term national security and not a crime plan. We're not criminals. Criminals do crime plans. We are looking at the security of all our citizens and the safety of all Jamaicans. The benefit of having a place in society clearly defined performance indicators, a place clearly defined performance indicators on the objectives and targets in addition to the monitoring, evaluation, and learning component is consistent with the policy shift that we are implementing. Equally important is the fact that the funding is being provided through budget support. So the zones of special operation will get some special attention. And the law was designed, as I said, to focus on the top element of it. And all of this is not done by Dr. Chang, the General Secretary, and the Prime Minister as party leader. The work is done very regularly by the Planning Institute of Jamaica, who have an extremely excellent team of high-quality professionals that could do that work anywhere in the world, to analyze data and identify the vulnerable communities. Something I urge more Jamaicans, especially business leaders, church leaders, NGO workers, to find the data, read it, and understand what we're dealing with. Because oftentimes when I hear the comments, I don't want to get into content, but I sometimes wonder where the comments come from and how they come. But data is there. Don't have to agree with myself and the Prime Minister, but at least speak from the data that's available that shows clearly what is happening. It ensures that in the zones of special operation we are moving that direction now, because prior to at the very beginning, we moved in traditional way. Now we have asked, and the Planning Institute have started. We did some basic work with JSIF. I think they have already earmarked the first 3 sets, but we intend that all zones of special operation will get the resources to identify and analyze, to collect and analyze the source of demographic data in detail on every single community. We need to know the status of every single citizen's soul in that community. And therefore, engagement is designed to not only protect them, but to offer them, in a safe space, a better quality of life and to restore their opportunities and hope in that community. An example, of course, rehabilitation. Of course, in addition to all that we have involved in all of this study, police, and where I emphasize strong police at the beginning. Rehabilitation of police facilities. Among the targets in this particular program, in addition to the wonderful social, 100+ social targets, there's rehabilitation of police stations. I outlined to the public very recently what it means. The traditional thing is give a policeman 4 walls and hopefully a working toilet and a uniform and say, go do the work. And of course, they meet disrespect. They themselves get frustrated and may go offline sometimes, and we expected our elimination of violence. If we are going to successfully deal with violence, we also have to deal with state violence. We therefore have to provide the police with the appropriate training, appropriate equipment, and appropriate facilities that they can conduct policing in a totally professional manner. Certainly, if somebody fires at them, I don't expect them to take a shot. I said that before and I say it again. When they meet men with illegal firearms shooting at them, they have to remove them from the scene. I have no apology, and I'm not sending an ambulance out there either. Anybody with illegal guns is a killer. And if they're going to use it against the law enforcement agencies, then the law enforcement agencies are trained well, and they must respond. Need not apologize for that. What I want is a safe space that the thousands of young men who have been slaughtered over the last 20 years will now be given new hope and new opportunities to live a decent, productive life and contribute to the development of our society. We have many more out there, not only in athletics. There are more Usain Bolts, there are more Merlin artists and Shellyan, and there are many others who can do medicine, law, engineering, software development. But we are slaughtering many of them. That must stop. And that is the remit of the police commissioner and the support of the government. But when we create a safe space, with this kind of investment, we must provide the opportunities that they can indeed develop their talent, and become what they can be, and really take pride in themselves, restore the dignity of the community, and in fact contribute to Jamaica's dignity. The training of parents, crucial, because in our society, and it is how you go about this. You have and many, many years ago, when you look for a grandmother, you look for somebody who's kind of a bent back and just about kind of like a sage in the yard. No, when you meet the 35-year-old, you have a 35-year-old grandmother. That's the trauma of part of the trauma society. So we have to sometimes training in parenting, have to involve parenting in the operation. It will be a dual operation, is to reduce the fertility rate, which I haven't done badly in, but also get these young individuals who are so challenged to see life in a different context. And say training parents, I'll give you a little story from my medical days when I was still on the direction of Dr. Ashley too. Because in Jamaica, ambassador, and I've taken up a lot of your morning, my apologies, it's a very personal topic for me, director. That will finish in a little while. But I'm going to have to give you this story. It's not a joke, but you'll find it interesting. As a young practitioner, of course, rural Jamaicans, when you go to them, when they come to a doctor, the first they want is a sound. That means you take on the stethoscope, you take off your shirt, and you listen, because if you don't sound them, you don't know what's happened to them. Right? That was Jamaican. Dr. Ward is from New York when she did that kind of practice. And I took a little different approach even then. I had both personal and the experience I had acquired working with what was a very fantastic public health team in the Ministry of Health. And a young lady came to me with her first child, and her complaint was this child keep regurgitating and vomiting consistently and losing weight. And she didn't know what was happening. She just said, child sick, doc. She does everything she eats, she brings it up back. And listen to her carefully, because the first thing you do to humble people is to listen to them. Unfortunately, to one of the weakness society. Simple thing. I said to her, how you feed the baby? I said, breastfeed, doc, and bottle. So how you hold the baby and breast? Boy, put the breast in her mouth and hold her. Boy, you look, baby is halfway down to her waist and pulling on the nipple hardly, she can't reach it. And if she fill the bottle, she stick it in the mouth and leave it. I said, look on the bottle, half of what's going in is her ear. She's barely catching nipples, she's sucking ear, she's sucking your breast, and when you feed her the bottle with a little bit of fluid, whatever it is you put in there, and half what is stuck in his ear. So by the time she sucked all that ear, she bring it up back. She looked at me with a kind of amazement. And I sounded the patient. I said, no, I want to go back home. And I tell you, when you're breastfeeding the baby, hold up the baby. And the mother said, hold him right up to the breast. And when you feed him, make sure the nipple of the bottle is full of fluid. She was so hesitant at first, I had to say to her, tell you what, this is my pride packet. Don't pay me any money today. I don't want to leave any money with me. She's a poor girl, but she had the doctor's fee. You go home and do what I tell you for the next 2 weeks and come back to me. And if you choose, you can pay me then, but you come back to me in 2 weeks' time. She walked back in 3 weeks' time, and she was smiling for the first time. The baby was gaining weight, and there was no more regurgitation. Of course, all that happened at that point is she told me everything that was wrong, every spot on the baby, every wrinkle on the baby, to see if I could, that she was concerned about. But I mentioned Rebecca just to listen to her. And if we can get this across to our humble people, whether they are practice, violence producer or otherwise, much of the challenge we have in our inner city and challenged communities, just to give them a listening ear, understand their challenges, and respond appropriately, we can make a significant difference. That is parenting, and of course we have the professional qualification and certificate. There's training, which is proceeding, not at the pace I'd like. Neither of these programs, aspect of the program, Madam Vancini, is proceeding at the pace I'd like. Good work has been on my heart, but we need to focus on the statistics in the zones of special operation, and certainly too in terms of parenting, how we reach them and ensure we can catch all of them. These are only 3 of the indicators. I think there are some subset of about 7 major indicators and about 100, and as they said, 100 and plus indicators are reckoned. We will not have the change we want. We will not have the change we want until and unless we achieve the system of institutional changes within the ministries, departments, and agencies that are tasked with serving the people of these communities. Engagement must be based on public safety, a healthy environment, and in a sustainable manner. The MDAs have to change their approach, as I said. And I said to you, I repeat, Director, we have the support of your Director in Planning Institute, and we have Mr. Sweeney, who has been doing a lot of work of this sort, and has had some frustration. Because when I say coordination and funding through the agencies, Ambassador, it is crucial. Mr. Sweeney can tell you we fix a water system in a poor community. And because we put it on an electrical system, nobody takes it over. And 6 months' time after a beautiful ceremony, the system goes. Because the parish council, they cannot afford to pay the bill, and the water commission is not viable. And it was built. Coordination for sustainability is the most fundamental aspect of government agencies. We are one government, one country, serving one people. There has been much talk about the need for data to support this work. And I concur with that operational, and I want to say that operational research is also critical in this. It must be done as the manner that if required, change can be conducted during the implementation and execution. But the coordination must ensure efficient execution. And in this particular program, I'm paying personal attention, Ambassador. We have seen some little waffling, but I know my Permanent Secretary has been very keen on pulling them together. And we're getting the cooperation of the various ministries. We have had individual meeting with ministries to sensitize them where we think they are not moving adequately. And we are going to ensure that this happens. And data must guide the process. It should not only inform the final report. The final report must tell us that we have achieved the solution and the outcomes. May not all be 100% every time, but we must be on the right road. We have had much investment in social intervention initiatives as we focus on security. But it is imperative that social transformation initiatives be designed to be sustainable and to bring meaningful change in the lives of the people in the identified communities, restore hope, restore dignity, and a sense of equity in our challenged citizens. I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the audience. Look forward to working with all the stakeholders here in ensuring that this particular aspect of the project is executed efficiently and well, and will begin the process of transformation and change in our challenged communities. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of National Security, Honorable Dr. Chang. Very sober address, very informative, demonstrating a firm understanding of the issues and gleaned for many years of experience. We want to thank you for that. We're going to ask DPM for you to come again to the stage. We're going to have a photo session at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, just a brief photo session. And we're going to call you in time, so we're going to do one photo with the minister. So I'm being guided, yes? And Ambassador to receive first. And Courtney, Permanent Secretary, Williams. And let me then invite the ambassadors from the EU member states, as well as Ambassador Celia Monteith, our Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. So it's Germany, Spain, France. The ambassadors here, Belgium, please. And Minister of State, Xavier Main, to come at this time. And let me invite Commissioner Anthony Anderson to come at this time. And me?
Space needed. Brigadier from ANSA, please join us. Miss McIntosh, please join us.
All right, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, for some more photos here. I also fail to recognize Dr. Elizabeth Ward, who is a long-standing practitioner and champion in community development, violence prevention. And I'm going to ask, after this photo up, I'm going to invite Permanent Secretary Courtney Williams, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of National Security, to move the vote of thanks. And we're going to put back the lectern in the middle. So we are just about finishing. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your rapt attention and your patience, your engagement here. It's not for me to thank. We're going to have a formal thank you. We're putting back the podium here. You know, a man met a young lady on the bus, and he said to her, "Nice lady, what's your name?" And she said, "You can call me Babes." And he said, "Babes, I can get to know you better. Are you on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp? She said, no, I'm on MoneyGram, Western Union. Money transfer, wire transfer. Let me invite Mr. Cordy Williams. Oh, and I understand now the question and answer. So just ahead of our voter thanks, we have some questions on the program to support citizen security in Jamaica on this launch, and we have some questions from the audience here, members of the media, and we're just going to field a few questions. And just indicate, and we will have a roving microphone that's sanitized, brought to you, just to take your question. Questions? Yes, go ahead, please.
Can you hear me clearly? Okay, good. Greetings, everyone. Minister Chang, these questions are for you. I'm Jason Cross from the Observer. Minister, could these funds be used to fund or support more zones of special operations across the island?
Some of the funding is spent in the zones because the zones are maybe the most severe of the affected communities where the funds are designed to go. I said there is the communities that are involved that are seen as challenge runs particularly across the southern crescent. There's the small southern crescent of the corporate area 4 police divisions, and you extend across St. Catherine into Clarendon and the tri-parish area of Western Jamaica. So funds are spent here, but to spend in more, like all other aspects of it, it's not spent on an annualized basis. The project is what, 5 years, I think? Yeah. 3 years. So we spent a certain amount, there's about $3.5 billion. Even with the total amount devoted, and not quite all devoted, you will still not be able to do too many more zones. At a minimum level, in addition to increase expenditure on the security forces, capital expenditure for most zones run between $350 and $500 million. So you're limited by that. The government of Jamaica, of course, is putting funding in there. So we have to be careful. But in addition to the amount of money that is to be spent in a zone, we not only need to have the appropriate number of security forces in those zones because we have intensive security measures. We need human resources as well, and not only social workers and the MDA employees in health, education, etc. But the spending the money on capital requires a certain level of capacity in capital expenditure. And the reality is in government, but those of us who are in there maybe, I've been there a little bit too long, if you have too much money spending at one time and you cannot monitor it effectively and carry out the procurement, money gets wasted. There are still many people in this country, unfortunately, when money is being spent, especially in depressed communities, they see it, boys, is some pork barrel government money, and therefore I need as much of those as I can. We have had Mr. Sweeney beside and tell you, quite frankly, when we get into this community, if I don't have Mr. Sweeney agency to work with, I take a second look at how fast I move, and I say that publicly. He has developed an extremely high quality agency in terms of executing the work, and I can have a confidence that when he spends, we get value for money. And if there's deviation, we can spot it and pull this contract together. And this particular applies to certain areas of government. You see, if you're building a school in a community, of course, everybody looks on. But we're going to a poor community where very few little work has been done. First of all, very few people want to go in there to do the work anyway. The man who goes in there believes he's owed a premium rather than to work and optimize the funding from it. They seek to optimize their profit. And of course, tell you that they have to pay all kind of people extra money, whether it is so or not. So doing a zone along the lines we have put that zone together. We can't just expand it exponentially to all 25 or 30 communities that may be required. It has to be done in a very systematic way, planned very carefully to ensure all components are there. If we take the program and dilute it too much, we destroy the hope of our people. Other programs have been there like that. You articulate a program, set a standard that the poor people get restored, hope is restored. That's why so many people want it. but it must be done properly. Okay? You just spread it across, call it a zone, because it's politically nice, and I may win the next election easier. It doesn't help in the long run of the country. We are going to maintain the quality and ensure that we execute it appropriately, and that we learn as we go along and improve, not diminish that dilute. So while we need more zones, it will be done on a systematic basis.
Okay, Minister. Another question from me is, what is your stance today on groups like the PMI? Could any of these funds be used to revive the PMI?
From a government point of view, we don't have resources putting in agencies like that at this point in time. The partners sometimes fund them. The PMI, need to remind the audience now, was started as a political organization. The founding of the PMI was between Desmond Mackenzie largely and Paul Burke of the PNP to negotiate peace between contending political gangs. My position is I don't negotiate with gangs, and I don't support negotiating with gangs. It's not a new position for me. I have one of the most gang-infested communities in the island, and I have their respect, but I don't have confidence with them. Never did, never had. The police is here, is gone, I can tell you that. That's not a way to solve the problem, right? But in terms of if the members of PMI change the direction, we're happy to work with them. Dr. Ashley is here, she heads up, she's a commissioner, but she's head of the Violence Prevention, get the right name? Alliance. Somebody that does excellent work. And we need more, but the government's first emphasis, let me just say it here, is to ensure that the money we spend through the budget make sure that the institutions of government do their job. That's what I emphasized in my presentation. I said, I can have a dozen NGOs working in Flanker. We used to have 75 at one stage. But until I fix the quality of the family life and get the schools in a proper shape, that won't change. We need to get that out of our headspace. The basic services serving the poor must be of the best quality. There's a teacher who told me once, your best teacher must teach the dumbest class and the brightest class. In Jamaica, we take the opposite. Where do you get the weak schools? Look across the island, look at the budget and the schools that are not performing. They are across the areas of violence. So if I have $1 to spend, it go there first. I'll be happy to have the church come in and help me. But my money going to fixing the school first. And therefore, I welcome those who have the resources to devote. And there are many agencies who support, there are individuals who support, and big business companies are making our foundations. But the government's money must go toward providing high quality service to the very poor. And I'm not going to apologize for that. That's where the money, and it must be spent efficiently. I think you're a reporter, and you need to examine this, You have many people out there who need part. It's a small thing, but not properly monitored. The person who can walk to the Social Security office needs it and should get it. But the one who needs it most have lost the energy, the appetite, just the hope to attend a government office, because nobody listens to them. And if they are a helper and they work days work in different people's house, that's how some of them live. I have a medical student that put to school, so his parents live. The father walk around the middle class here and beg a bushing a yard and get the money maybe for the week, someday we none, next week they earn a couple $100. That person don't have time to go to heart, because the day they stop walking the street and finding some work, maybe they lose their work. That's the person I must find, and the social worker must find and bring on to path. Giving him $5,000 because you spot him one day when he come to church to ask part or something is not the answer. I need to find them, put them on the path which give them something on a steady basis. So my money must be there in part to get them. And then we look at how I can change his life or her life, whether by training, orientation, new ways, and many other ways. Once you engage these people, they themselves may have the answer to your problem. So the government funding is not denying anybody like PMR does work. What I'm saying, the government taxpayer money must be spent efficiently on the people who are in need of it, directly. And the government institutions of public health, Social Security, and education must do their job and do it well and efficiently and restore hope to these people in these communities. Every school you can think of. When you go downtown, nobody wants to go into school down there. You find brand new schools, well fixed. Classrooms in good order. Water is there. Teachers are there. They are the most important social workers. So you have government spending millions, 50 teachers in that school because you can't move them. And they have 100 students because the schools perform this, so nobody wants to go there. That must change if we're going to change. And that is the government's focus. And my responsibility has been somewhat delegated by the Prime Minister to work with his team in the Business Council to ensure that that happens. That's my first priority.
Final thing from me, Minister. Could you please clarify your stance on citizens found with illegal handguns? You mentioned it earlier, but just so we're clear.
Clear. I say any criminal, anybody that has illegal firearm is a criminal to start with. Law-abiding citizens don't carry illegal firearms, and they must be dealt with severely. If they fire the police must return fire. And I know the police is better trained than him. So if him shoot him, that's part of the consequence. What I'd like is fine when him see a policeman, him have the respect to surrender the firearm, we lock him up and carry him to court. And anybody found with a firearm, as the new law comes, must go to court, must stay in prison for a long time.
How soon can we expect this legislation? Minister?
The law is at this point now, we have personal attention, is that should be in the final drafting stages. I'd love to bring it to LegCom before we close the parliamentary year, but lawyers have their own pace. It's a reasonable complex bill, but it's a good bill. Long bill, we are not just, as was announced originally, amending the Firearms Act. We are repealing and replacing it with a more effective Firearms Act in which we will treat illegal firearms as they are. They are weapons of criminals. And there will be no distinction between an illegal firearm from a 22 to an AK-47. All of them are designed to kill, and anybody who have one is a killer, in my opinion, and must be treated as such. So we intend that the law must ensure those with prohibited firearms, as we call them, will serve a long time behind bars. And they will go there, with the appropriate evidence, of course, and that's the objective of the law. But I'm saying many of them are brutal killers and will attack the police. And police must defend themselves appropriately. I make no apologies for that.
Minister, do you support using licensed firearm holders to help in the fight against crime, as recently suggested or recommended?
No, there is, under the old District Constable Act, which was, I think it's called the Rural Police Act, Commissioner is gone, you could have members who have this requisite intention and training and integrity work with the security forces. The current law doesn't allow it, but we may have to examine it because citizen support is quality, and it doesn't have to be those licensed firearm holders. All citizens can contribute, because in the crime prevention process, to be a mentor to a child in Whitfield Town or Greenwich Farm is part of the crime prevention. So this government is eager and willing to engage all our citizens. But there might be people who have had a retired JDF officer may feel that he would like to be a DC to work with the police in special operations. Once he shows the appropriate mentality, I would not entirely anybody to go shoot people. I'm telling you, if they shoot after the security, I expect them to shoot back. I don't expect them to take up a shot. But our policemen are trained well, not only in being able to use the special ops team, not only can use a firearm well, but they understand human rights responsibility. They have been given exposure to how to engage people positively as we seek to direct young men out of the community. If you're always trying to kill a young man, he's not going to come and listen to you. The purpose is to engage him and redirect him. But those who fight, I expect my police officers are better fighters. But you'll have citizens who can play that role. We'll have to evaluate everyone for their integrity, their competence, and their demeanor. And when they fit the bill, we will use them if we can get the legislation appropriately placed. Remember, every police officer today who joins and signed up has to be vetted. Not only they are vetted and interviewed, and a background check done to see if we get the right person. We'll not only be 100%, but it's much more detailed today than it ever was. And that was vetting for integrity, is looking at the background for some level of integrity. And they can come from any sector of society. Integrity is not confined to one set of society. In fact, those who say they are and are not are worse than the ones down there who we expect to be.
Thank you very much, Minister. Any final question? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Honorable Horace Chang, our Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security. Let me invite Mr. Courtney Williams at this time, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of National Security, to move our vote of thanks.
Dr. the Honorable Horace Chang, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security. Minister Main, let me join Minister Chang in welcoming you to the Ministry of National Security, our new Minister of State, Her Excellency Ambassador Weinstein, Ambassador Celia Monteith, and my colleague, Permanent Secretary, Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, the chairman for today's proceedings, and Director General of the Planning Institute of Jamaica, Dr. Wayne Henry, Brigadier Williams, Dr. Ashley, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to you all. Today's launch, indeed, of the Government of Jamaica and the EU partnership to support citizen security is a truly significant event. And it is significant because it culminates almost 2 years of planning, and it epitomizes the true meaning of solidarity and collaboration. I think all the speakers before me mentioned about collaborate, this whole of government approach. This is what the Citizen Security Plan, the CSP, epitomizes. And there are several ministries, departments, and agencies and other key stakeholders who continue to work assiduously to improve Jamaica's citizen security. This plan is really the government of Jamaica's endeavor to create safer spaces, reduce crime and violence, and of course, to improve human and community development. It is a comprehensive plan, well coordinated, and an enduring approach to prioritize public order, public safety, and the fight against crime. So I would just like to use this opportunity to extend greatest and deepest gratitude to our multiple stakeholders, and there are over 50 stakeholders. In fact, I can go even further than that. Each public, private institution and household is actually a stakeholder in this fight, in this plan, citizen security plan. Now, it really wouldn't be practical for me to mention all those 50 or so stakeholders, but I'll just highlight a few. And I'm going to start, of course, with Deputy PM and my Minister Chang for your stewardship in the leadership of the Ministry of National Security and your profound statement today. In your presentation, you underscored the importance of sound policing. And let me just reiterate, the importance of sound policing. You also spoke to the intensified social investment, as well as a strategic approach to rescue these at-risk communities and these vulnerable youth and parents. That is very critical. You also stress the importance of coordination, this whole of government approach, which is going to make a meaningful difference at the end of the day. So these are really critical steps towards getting that secure Jamaica that we all seek. Brigadier Williams, let me also commend you. I think your passionate and dedicated approach to citizen security plan is something that's really needed at this time. And you highlighted and stressed the importance of inclusivity. I have to reiterate that point. Inclusivity meaning we all have to be a part of this. We all have to be pulling our weight. for this plan to work and for it to work effectively and efficiently. You also emphasize the strategic alignment of the plan with the national goal. Because absent that alignment, we are not going to get the kind of outcome that we expect from this plan. Dr. Ashley from the Violence Prevention Alliance, I think your words today resonated well. I think it resonated well with all of us here today and all of those who were listening. So I want to say thank you very much for your contribution to this program. I have to commend, of course, the work being undertaken by the Citizen Security Secretariat. This is a critical agency to monitor the targets and to monitor the work of the various ministries, departments, and agencies that are involved. Because what I must emphasize here is that, yes, you can have all these MDAs working in silos, but without that kind of coordinated approach, and without us having established and tested mechanisms and systems to monitor these programs. And of course, the point that you made, ED, which I have to also highlight, the importance of data-driven decision-making. In other words, we don't want to be making decisions based on gut feelings. So we are gathering the data and analyzing it and utilize it in a way that we can inform better decision-making. So that's a very important and strategic work being done by the Citizen Security Secretariat. Ambassador, well, I have to say here, the work of the EU and the partnership with the EU, let me use this forum to say you have really been a solid and trusted partner for the government of Jamaica. You have come handsomely on board to support this initiative and coming on board with hard cash. You're coming with transfers to us where we don't have to pay you back, which is very important. So you're providing grant support to us, and we really are thankful for that. If I were to just tell you a little story here, just in about a minute. About 2 decades ago, you know, usually when the Minister of Finance makes his budget presentation, he usually tables the revenue estimates telling how much revenue we have collected, how much we expect, and there's usually a section there for grants. And it normally would list who are the donors, whether bilateral or multilateral donors. And there was a category there for other. Now, about 20 years ago, that category for other far outstripped the sum total of all the other donors, which really wasn't the best way and the most sensible way of presenting. You can't have that category other being the largest by far. And what was causing that? Because the EU was there in that category of other. So the decision was taken by the Minister of Finance to identify the support from the EU. And once that was done, as I said, from 20 years ago, the EU became, and it was shown to the public that the EU was the single largest supporter in terms of grant funding to Jamaica. That was the case 20 years ago. It is the case today. And from your presentation earlier, I can glean that you want to remain number one even 20 years from now. And we welcome that. Chairman Henry, let me thank you for your astute steering of today's proceedings. Of course, interspersed with some welcome moments of humor. Yes? I will give him 1,000 pesos. Yes, we really appreciate those moments of humor that you actually bring to the session. So, you know, give a certain amount of life to it. So we look forward to continue working with these various stakeholder groups as we monitor and evaluate our targets and performance through the longevity of the Citizen Security Plan. We want to thank, of course, the Planning Institute of Jamaica which plays an integral role in this process. And we want to laud them for their efforts and their hard work, and have to continue to put into this critical process. Lastly, I do have a few more things to say, but lastly, Pastor Cook, I mean, we started out with prayer, so I think it's good that I end by thanking Pastor Cook for his very powerful words at the start of the proceedings. Now, Pastor Cook said several things there, but I think I can sum up Pastor Cook's presentation with just 2 words, and those are really, live good. So, on behalf of all Jamaicans, we say thank you for joining us in the fight against crime as we seek to leverage this new approach as the ideal platform to develop and to refine practices that promise enduring and positive results in improving citizen security, particularly through the social and physical transformation of our most vulnerable communities. And Minister mentioned some of those earlier. Let me say that we remain encouraged through our partnerships, and in the words of the Deputy PM, Minister Chang himself, we remain encouraged, and with consistency, proper planning, and sufficient time, we will reap the benefits and Jamaica will be more secure. Thank you very much. And we continue to live good.
Thank you very much, Courtney Williams. Very well said, Permanent Secretary. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. As we close with their refreshments, we're going to ask you to grab and go. So just as you exit the tent here, there are some refreshments at the back. We're going to ask you to grab and go. Thank you very much, and we all continue to work towards a more secure Jamaica. God bless you all.